Hello everyone. I haven't made a YouTube video in a very long time, but I've decided to give it another try. This is the story of Wishmaster, Part 0. Part 0 is just going to be an introduction. Wishmaster is a horror film from 1997. It's loosely based on the idea that if you free a genie, they'll be obliged to grant you 3 wishes. The twist with Wishmaster is that the genie is evil, and he has a rather sinister ulterior motive. I'm going to be retelling the story and talking about the religious and philosophical aspects of the film. I first watched Wishmaster many years ago, so the question is, why am I doing this now? It's a good question. I hadn't even thought about the film for quite a long time, but I got some inspiration. I found that inspiration on the wonderful world of the internet, and from YouTube in particular. So before we start, I just want to cover why I'm actually doing this. I've been inspired by Rachel Banner's retelling of the unauthorized story of Adam and Eve. She's been doing a series of going through that story. She also did another video about the Phantom of the Opera, and I like that too. I'll put links in the description. The connection was that both of these stories seemed a little bit similar to Wishmaster. They got me thinking about it. In the Adam and Eve story, Satan is in that story quite a lot, and Satan plays a similar role to the Wishmaster. In the Phantom of the Opera, the tagline or catchphrase, slogan, or whatever you want to call it, is "Love never dies." And that especially reminded me of Wishmaster. The reason for that is because the sequel to Wishmaster, Wishmaster 2, has the subtitle "Evil Never Dies." So I thought that was an interesting similarity. I also want to talk about what this all means to me. I'm very interested in the philosophy in Wishmaster and how that connects with my own personal philosophical approach to life. I believe wisdom is universal. That's one of my fundamentals, if you like. I don't know if we all have fundamental worldviews, but that idea is part of mine. I think that good and bad ideas come from everywhere. So it's not just about any particular holy book or ideas from any particular philosophers. It can come from almost anywhere, really. It's about good ideas versus bad ideas, good ways of doing things, bad ways of doing things. So what I like to do, and what I've always done, is I try to analyze everything. I try to go back to first principles, using ideas like Occam's razor, for example. That's a very nice guiding principle. It helps a lot. So I analyze and I cherry pick. I cherry pick a lot. I'm not a religious person, but I do like some of the ideas from religions. I'm not very political either. I'm not left-wing and I'm not right-wing. Indeed, I'm British, and most British people are not strongly tied to any political ideology. I'm more liberal for sure, but there are times when I think the liberals have got it wrong and the right-wing approach might make more sense. And it's funny because it's tied together with emotions to some extent. And when you're going through the thought processes, you think, well, can we strip that subjectiveness away? And can we find some fundamentals? Some absolutes, if you like, although absolute might be too strong a word. So I'm interested in finding fundamental philosophies, and as I just said, I think wisdom being universal is one of those. Alright, let's start properly. And to start properly, we need to have a disclaimer, a la Rachel. If you've seen her Adam and Eve videos, she has a disclaimer at the start. Hopefully she won't mind me copying her style. Wishmaster isn't really an Adam and Eve story though, but it is similar. You have three main characters. There's Josh and Alexandra, and then there's the Wishmaster. And the roles are a little bit similar too. In this case, Alexandra is the main protagonist, and the Wishmaster is the only antagonist. Josh is a little bit like Eve's character. He's got a much smaller role in the story, but if he wasn't there, the story wouldn't work as well. So it's actually quite important that he is there. There's another couple of things I want to mention because I've fiddled with the disclaimer slightly. I've added the part that says, but it could be. That's my little spin on this. Now, I'm not entirely serious. I'm not advocating that we start new religions or that we add material to existing ones. But I do think there's a lot of good ideas in Wishmaster. It's not just another horror film. Some of the ideas in Wishmaster seem quite objective, and some of them are fundamental. I mean, it's an age-old good versus evil story, but there's more to it than that. I don't want to spoil it too much, but one idea is that you never want to do a deal with the devil. So at no point, however terrible things are, and however good the offer from the devil may seem, you don't want to accept it. You don't accept it. I mean, that should be obvious, right? There are times when I think that's obvious to everyone. Isn't it? But maybe it isn't. I don't know. Maybe it depends on your background and how much experience you've had of these sorts of ideas. The other point I wanted to make is that I don't think my videos are going to be as entertaining as Rachel's. I don't have her charisma or her talent. So I was thinking about changing the part that says this retelling is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I was going to change it to this retelling is for educational and philosophical purposes only. Although I haven't done that, and I might not. But I do want to focus on the philosophy. That's the part I'm interested in, and it's the part that I have a passion for. Alright, let's get on with the film. There's a really great introduction to Wishmaster. The main part of it is 2 pages of text that is also spoken to us by a narrator who does a very good job. We're just going to look at the first page. It's only got 3 lines. So we can take it line by line, and we'll start with the first line. I really like this first line. It says so much in just one sentence. I think it's very clear, although there is some scope for different interpretations, which I may talk about in another video. There was one thing in particular I wanted to mention. This opening line makes me wonder about something. I did a degree in physics, so I got to learn a little bit about time. It's a very big topic. It's one of those things that's obvious because we all experience time. It's not complicated on the surface, but when you start thinking about it, it suddenly gets complicated. I suppose that's the entire discipline of philosophy, really. That surface impressions of things are never the complete story. So I've always wondered if change is more fundamental than time. That's the question here. In other words, is time an absolute? If time is the fundamental thing, then you can't have change without time. And the reason for that is because time gives you clock ticks. The idea that you have to go from one step to the next. You need time to do that. So without time, nothing can change. Or is it the other way around? Is time somehow an emergent property? One particular idea in physics which is an emergent property is temperature. You were probably taught how heat and temperature work at school. It's covered in most science curriculums. You should remember something about the flow of heat and the movement of atoms and molecules. I'm not going to go into the details, but temperature is, in some sense, not real. So the big question is whether time is real. Does time emerge from changes? In other words, change is the fundamental component. Anyway, ultimately, I think this line is right. I think it's great. It says that time and space were both created in the Big Bang. And it says there must have been some events that occurred before the Big Bang. Events that caused the Big Bang. But how that really happened, nobody knows. This is all a very big topic and it's not easy to get your head around it. Nevertheless, I like that line so much. It says so much in so few words. The second part, the second line, and the light gave birth to angels, and the earth gave birth to man, that's very, what's the word? Succinct, straightforward. It's a lot like the biblical account, but it's a lot simpler and concise. You create heaven, you create the earth, you create angels, you create man. That's brilliant, the job's done. There's no complexity. There's no need for multiple days. There's no Adam and Eve involved either. I think that's fantastic because I like the simplicity of things. I must be a simple man. I get confused by complexity. And there's really not much more to say about it. The third line is different. In one sense, it's not like the biblical version at all. I mean, it's a little bit like the Bible, don't get me wrong. But the jinn are not fallen angels. We're not told anything about the jinn, but essentially they're a race of demons. The word itself is singular and plural. In the film, we just have one jinn, and that's the Wishmaster. We don't know how many other jinn there are. All we know is that God created them and God put them in the void. We don't know anything about their gender either, which is a good thing because we don't need to know. The jinn in the film is very much like Satan though, and he is usually seen taking a male form. We're not told if he's the leader of the jinn or anything like that, but he is a lot like Satan. He's pure evil and he's determined to get what he wants. Specifically, he wants his fellow jinn to escape from the void and conquer the earth. So Wishmaster is very much a story about the end of the world. The Adam and Eve story is a beginning of the world story, and this at least potentially is an end of the world story. But only if the jinn gets what he wants. So God has set all this up. And at the moment, it's perfectly logical and sensible, right? It's not an unfamiliar origin story. But what about the plot of the film? Yeah. That's where it becomes rather contrived. And if you look at the reviews for Wishmaster, it's got quite a few mixed reviews. Maybe part of the reason is that the plot doesn't make much sense. But don't let that put you off. Wishmaster is great. The actual execution of the film is flawless, in my opinion. It's really, really good. Andrew Divoff, especially, gets a lot of credit for his portrayal of the Jinn. He comes across as being incredibly charming and completely evil at the same time. It's as if he was born for the role. It's at that sort of level. He just pulls it off perfectly. Let's get back to the plot. It takes inspiration from the story of the genie and the magic lamp. God has added a mechanism by which the Jinn can escape from the void. One of the Jinn is not in the void with all of the others. Instead, they are sleeping somewhere on the earth, but they can be woken up by somebody. So it's like the genie in the magic lamp, but with a few differences. When the Jinn is woken, he can use his powers to grant wishes. He's almost omnipotent, so he has a lot of power to wield. Now, if the Jinn can get the person who woke him up to make 3 wishes, then the unholy legions of the Jinn will be freed to rule the earth. That's what it says in the introduction. I might come back to that line at some point, or put my thoughts in the comments. In any case, is the Waker going to make those 3 wishes? That's the question. That's the plot of the film. And it's a great question, in my opinion. It sets up the protagonist, antagonist, and antagonist to face off. Will Alexandra make her 3 wishes and allow the Jinn to win? That's essentially what the film's about. If she makes the 3 wishes, the Jinn wins. Or can she stop him somehow? If I haven't mentioned it already, Wishmaster is fairly graphic in places. There's a lot of horrible things a powerful and evil creature can do to get people to do what he wants. So it's not as easy as just saying no. It's more complicated than that. But maybe that reflects real life as well. We all get put in situations where we have to choose, when we have to make a choice of some kind. Alright, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you to Rachel for inspiring this. If I do continue with this retelling, I'll cover the story 1 chapter at a time, just like Rachel has done with the Adam and Eve story. So next time, I'll talk about the prologue of the film and what I consider to be the first chapter. We'll get to meet Josh and Alexandra, and the Jinn will get woken up from a very long sleep. Let me know what you think.